Call to order the special city council meeting for the city of Eldridge, Iowa on Monday, April 29th, 2024 at 5:33 PM. Roll call.
Campbell,
Present.
Blackwell,
Present.
Dockery,
Present.
Collins,
Present.
Yosi,
Present.
We're here for the public hearing regarding the removal of utility board member Paula Stewart. Opening of the meeting and introductory remarks. Good evening. Just wanted to let everybody know for tonight's hearing regarding the removal of Paula Stewart from the utility board. Tonight's format will include number one, opening of the hearing in introductory remarks. The hearing will be opened as it always has been, and I will then make some introductory remarks. Ensure we all know the process that will include. Number two, the presentation of charges. I will present the charges for the removal of Paula Stewart from the City of Eldridge Electric, Water and Utility Board. Number three, Paula Stewart will have a chance to make her presentation. Then that's when I will turn over the floor to Mrs. Stewart so she can present information she'd like to on the issue of her removal. Number four, there will be public comment. If there's any additional public comment to be made during that time, such individuals will be allowed to speak for a predetermined amount of time. After that, there'll be the closing of the hearing, followed after Ms. Stewart's presentation and after any public comment. The city council will then vote to remove during tonight's city council meeting. Please note that I will require an orderly process tonight's hearing. Only one individual will be allowed to have the floor at a given time. I expect civility and respect during all interactions. I will not tolerate or disrupt inappropriate behavior at any time. It's my sincere hope that we'll have not any of these issues this evening, and I want to ensure that we're the same set of rules because I will ensure we have an orderly process tonight. For a little background, the Eldridge Electric Utility and Water Board exists pursuant to Iowa Code Chapter 388 under Section 388.3. A board member may be removed by the mayor with unanimous approval of the city council for the following reasons. First, a board member may be removed for any of these listed reasons under Chapter 66.1A. Willful or habitual neglect or refusal to perform duties of the office, willful misconduct or maladministration of the office, corruption, extortion, conviction of a felony, intoxication or upon conviction of being intoxicated, conviction of violating campaign finance state laws, and failure to pay a fine imposed for election misconduct that was not dismissed. And second, a board member may be removed under Chapter 388.3 for habitual non-attendance at meetings. Removal under Iowa Code 388 includes two steps. First, a written notice to be provided to the board member, which states the grounds for the removal. A copy of that notice is also filed with the city clerk. Here, the city provided written notice to Ms. Stewart on April 5th, 2024, and also filed a copy of the notice to remove with the city clerk. Ms. Stewart is entitled to request a public hearing on this issue connected with her removal, which is the purpose of this hearing tonight. During tonight's council meeting, the city council will then vote whether or not to approve her removal from the utility board. Tonight, after we get started here, I'll be presenting the charges for removal. This came about after the city became aware of concerning information. Utility board members were each called into meetings to discuss issues and concerns pertaining to their performance as trustees. Ms. Stewart attended her meeting and provided information in response to the questions and concerns. At the conclusion of the meeting, and after reviewing all information provided, it was determined that Paula Stewart had engaged in willful misconduct, willful maladministration, and a refusal to perform her duties as utility board member. Specifically, Ms. Stewart was found to have engaged in the following. Number one, breaching her fiduciary duties as a trustee. As a trustee, Ms. Stewart is a fiduciary of public funds and utility funds. She must therefore take all actions necessary to ensure that the expedition of funds is done appropriately and consistent with governing policies and applicable law. During her interview, Ms. Stewart admitted that utility funds were spent in a manner that was inconsistent with internal policies and procedures, as well as state and federal law. Number two, refusing or failing to request or review underlying documentation and or receipts related to and or in support of funds directed to be paid by utility board. Ms. Stewart acknowledged that she blindly approved and used the expense of utility funds without requesting or requiring proper documentation, receipts, or explanation for money used. Number 3, refusing and failing to require underlying documentation and or receipts related to and in support of funds directly to be paid by the utility board. As part of refusing to request or review the underlying documentation or receipts, Ms. Stewart also failed to require appropriate underlying documentation or such funds would be paid by the utility board. Number 4, refusing and failing to provide wage increases to utility employees pursuant to the collective bargaining agreement. During her time on the utility board, Ms. Stewart refused to fail to provide wage increases to utility employees consistent with the CBA required wage increases. She again refused to and failed to ensure that the wages being paid were in compliance with the CBA, that stands for collective bargaining agreement, which then resulted in wage payments and a violation of law. Number 5, refusing and or failing to require review information from or confirming the accuracy of information provided by the utility manager prior to voting to approve the expedition of utility funds. When questioned about specific decisions made, Ms. Stewart confirmed that she relied on information from utility manager and voted as she was directed to by him. Utility board members govern the city utilities. They do not take direction from employees. As such, Ms. Stewart failed to perform her duties when she refused or failed to require or review information from or confirm the accuracy of information provided by the utility manager. Instead, she was recommended without verifying the information presented. Number 6, refusing and failing to address violations of the Eldridge City Code, the adopted employee handbook, and utility board's adopted policies by the utility board members or utility employees. Ms. Stewart acknowledged that she was made aware of utility employees refusing to comply with utility board policies while she was a member of the board. In response, she did not address the violations of the Eldridge City Code, the adopted Eldridge employee handbook, or utility board's adopted policies. Her inaction was failure to perform her duties as a trustee. Number 7, refusing and or failing to require compliance with the Eldridge City Code, the adopted employee handbook, and utility board's adopted policies by utility board members or utility employees. Along the same lines as reason number 6, Ms. Stewart further refused and failed to require utility employees to comply with the Eldridge City Code, the adopted Eldridge handbook, and the utility board's adopted policy. She is aware of ongoing violations and took no action to address it. Refusing and or failing to address insubordination by utility employees, which she was aware of as a trustee. Refusing and or failing to require financial oversight, approval, or authorization for utility employee expense reimbursements. Ms. Stewart failed or refused to require financial oversight, approval, or authorization for utility employee expenses and reimbursements. Instead, she simply approved reimbursements collectively without asking for receipts, confirming there was any approval provided by a supervisor, or confirming there were any checks and balances in the expedition of the funds in this manner. Number 10, refusing and failing to address unauthorized use of utility funds. Ms. Stewart was made aware of various concerns regarding utility funds. Several have been mentioned, some are currently still under investigation, and others have been publicly acknowledged by the utility board. For example, the utility board was made aware that utility employees had hired a law firm and began working with them prior to any authorization from the utility board to retain or pay legal fees. And in response, Ms. Stewart took no legal action as a trustee. Number 11, refusing and or failing to address unauthorized direction of legal counsel by utility employees. Ms. Stewart also failed to ensure that any legal work on behalf of the board was being directed by the board and not individual board members or employees. Sorry about that. Utility employees are not represented by legal counsel. However, the Dickinson law firm was working with utility manager and taking directives from him, all at the expense of utility board. Ms. Stewart was aware of this and took no action to address it. Number 12, refusing and failing to address unauthorized fees incurred by legal counsel prior to being retained by the utility board or in excess of the scope of representation authorized by utility board. As an extension of above, reason number 12 for her removal includes refusing and failing to address the unauthorized fees incurred by legal counsel. In fact, several $1,000s in fees were incurred before the utility board ever met and voted to hire the attorneys. The final three reasons regarding Ms. Stewart's removal include refusing and failing to comply with the collective bargain agreement. Ms. Stewart admits was violated as a trustee. The wage violation that took place also resulted in her own son receiving a wage increase over 4 times the amount that was supposed to be received in the wages in the collective bargaining agreement. And lastly, refusing and failing to address misconduct of the utility manager and refusing and failing to address the misconduct of the utility clerk. Ms. Stewart was made aware of this misconduct by both the utility manager and the utility clerk. In response, she took no action to address it, which compromised the city property, utility funds, operation, and caused other issues. At this time, I'd like to turn the floor over to Paula Stewart and allow you an opportunity to present information. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. My name is Michael Malloy. I'm an Quad City attorney. I represent Utility Board employee Jody Kaufman. I'm here tonight to listen to the charges and accusations that the mayor just read against Paula Stewart. And I listened to his 15 reasons he stated, all of which start out refusing or failing to do something allegedly by Ms. Stewart. I would point out to you that under section 66.1A of the Iowa Code, that you've got to specify what willful misconduct is. What are you actually accusing Ms. Stewart of here? None of these alleged specific charges state the time, date, or place of any one of these charges. You're left to guess here what she actually allegedly did wrong. Because if you look at the charges, none of them have a time, date, or place of what she allegedly did, nor states any factual basis for the allegation. Now, those kind of charges are very serious charges being brought against a public official here. And any public official, including yourselves, if you were charged with this crime, you'd want to know what the hell you're being charged for, what the date was, what the time was, what information, factual information supported the charge. And if you read all these charges, they throw the proverbial kitchen sink at Ms. Stewart here. None of these charges have any specifications to them. Nothing concerning time, date, place, who, what, when, where. That any newspaper reporter would report in the news as far as a story of an alleged crime, for instance. What you're doing here is a violation of both Ms. Stewart's rights. It's a violation of the Iowa Code. It's a violation of the city code. And, you know, just another statement, the charges have at the top of them sent via certified mail. Of course, you know what that means, that Ms. Stewart gets the charges by certified mail and has to sign to them. My understanding is they were never sent by certified mail, and Ms. Stewart is here to talk about that in more detail. I would suggest that you stop this kangaroo court tonight and order the reinstatement of Paula Stewart to her position on the utility board. Thank you.
Thank everybody, my neighbors, my friends. everybody that's here, utility employees here to support me tonight. Just to talk about that, certified, just to finish that up, it was overnighted at a cost of $30. I did not have to sign for it. It came in a cardboard envelope. Just so you know. Before I start to go through the allegations against me, I would like everyone to know that this rift, as it has been termed by the press, and could have possibly been avoided if the mayor and city administrator had followed through with what was discussed at the February 6th utility board meeting. During that meeting, we had debated the new handbook and organizational chart. The utility board was not in agreement with the city on what was being presented. It was decided that none of us were experts on the subject and that a mediator was needed. The council and utility board never met with a mediator. After that meeting, let's be frank, all hell broke loose. On 2/15, Brock Prager received his notice that he was no longer eligible to be on the board due to residency requirement. Please note that there is no residence requirement in Iowa Code 388. On 2/19, council passed an ordinance requiring residency to serve on the utility board, waiving all 3 readings, which is not illegal, but does appear to be underhanded. Mike Anderson was also not reappointed to the board around the same time. On February 29th, the utility board voted to retain legal services to represent the board on the removal of Brock. On March 4th, Craig Garrels and Jeff Hamilton were appointed to the utility board. On March 6th, a FOIA request was sent out to the utility board. On March 25th, Jake Rao and Jody Kaufman were put on administrative leave with no information on why. On March 26th, Mayor invited all board members to an individual meeting. On March 27th, Jim Scottall received a removal letter. Prior to our utility board meeting, the mayor threatened that if we proceeded with that meeting, there would be legal implications. Several of us asked the mayor at that meeting what was illegal. He was not able to answer. I can reference the agenda if you would like to. At that meeting, we had been advised by our attorney that we could authorize Jake and Jody to come back to work. We also had on there to establish an EIN number for purpose of payment and payroll. And then we also authorized utility staff to establish vendor accounts. We had action to rescind any prior actions inconsistent with the actions taken today regarding the authority of the utility board to hire and supervise utility staff. We also had in there legal counsel to engage with the city regarding recent actions involving administrative leave and investigations. And then we had authorized legal counsel to obtain quotations for investigation of city allegations. Craig and Jeff, I think, had been on the board for maybe 10 days. When the mayor came in and threatened us saying that we were going to have legal implications, they completely shut down. The only thing that we got past that day, everything else was tabled, was to authorize legal counsel to obtain quotes for an investigation of our own. The council met outside of the law. The council met outside of the law to remove Jim, which is allowed only in extreme circumstances. This meeting is currently being investigated by the Iowa Public Information Board, complaint number 24FC0036. On March 28th, I had my meeting with the mayor, city administrator, and Councilman Yossi. I left that meeting feeling as if we were finally in a better place. On April 1st, a special utility board meeting, unanimous vote to hire JL Consulting to do our independent investigation on the allegations against utility staff. On April 2nd, prior to our utility board meeting, we received another threat from the mayor by email and again in person during public comment, stating that if we continued with our investigation, there would once again be legal ramifications. He explained that now the state auditor was involved and we would be impeding on their investigation. On April 5th, we received notice from the state auditor stating that the city has only notified the auditor of its own investigation. The auditor has not been engaged to do any work for the city and would not have to be engaged with the city to do any work for them. If the auditor did do an audit, they would only issue recommendations for internal controls and have absolutely no enforcement or authority. There is nothing that would prevent the utility from investigating our own employees. If we investigate this, is not considered interference by the auditor. Thus, there is no additional measures that will be taken by the state auditor if we were to continue to engage with our investigation. On the same day, ironically, Farm O'Brien and I received our email announcing our notice of removal, which I did not receive the certified letter. It was overnighted, like I mentioned, at a cost of $30 and no signature was required. On April 15th, the council meeting included the audit report. I'd like to point out that the report did not note any financial issues on the utility side with the utility, aside from pointing out there was need for further separation between the city and the utility. Our actions to file our EIN number and more clearly define roles between the two is an effort to do just that. This was an issue after the previous audit as well. I'm going to go through my allegations now. Pretty short and sweet. Number one, I was provided no proof of breach of fiduciary duty. Number two, we authorized with the bills payable report at the February 6th, February 26th, and March 7th meetings, the invoices that are in questions. Questions are always asked when reviewing financials. I honestly want to know how many of you have asked to see individual invoices at your council meeting? Have you? Because not the ones I've been at. I think Dockery is the only one I've noticed that ever asked to see them. And I also want to mention that we do not operate as a single person. We operate as a board. So to sit here and make these allegations against me is just wrong. I've had people, I'm going to go on a rant now. I've had people, my neighbors, strangers come up to me and talk to me. I have Representative Tom Detterman come up to me today. Do you know what you're doing to our reputations? Do you know that we're people? Do you know that the city administrator sent the police to Jake's door for a laptop when all she had to do was email?
With my kids watching, thank you very much.
Okay, this is, it's really gone out of control, and I seriously cannot believe that not one of you could have stepped in and said, let's slow down. All right, number three is a repeat of number two. You've heard the mayor go through them. Number four, the union contract. Let's talk about this for a minute. The employee wages are not in that contract. They are not in that contract. And just so you know that the public works, the water department, and the mechanic have received increases outside of that contract. Number five, again, I think we're referencing back to number two, the same. Number six, there has not been a handbook approved by the utility board, and I was never provided anything upon appointment. I didn't even have a meeting with the mayor. He never called me, never talked to me. I wasn't even invited to the council meeting when I was appointed. Number seven, they're asking the same thing as number six. Number eight, I was never provided any proof of insubordination, and the utility employees were never insubordinate to the utility board, and they don't report to you. Number nine is another repeat of 2, 3, and 5. Number 10, I'm not exactly sure what is being referred to here, but the attorney fees, the board was well aware that the staff was reaching out to them. And I have the invoice right here. If you want me to pass it around, you can look at it. It was not thousands of dollars. It was 3.5 hours just to make sure that they could represent us in the way that we needed them to. But I do have it if you want to see it. Number 11 is a repeat of number 10. Number 12, another repeat of 10 and 11. Number 13 is a repeat of number 4. And again, 14 and 15, I never received, or the employees were never had any misconduct to the utility board. Thank you. Good job.
All right, that concludes Ms. Stewart's presentation. At this time, if there's any individuals who wish to provide public comment during this hearing, now is the time to do so, and you'll be allowed 3 minutes per person. And we'd like you to stand at that podium right there and state your name and address.
I live in Eldridge, 52 miles. This is just mind blowing. All the refusing, everything the lawyer said, everything Paula said. For you guys, it's unbelievable. What I would like to see is you go back to the board and start again, start from scratch, and let's go through this. This is ridiculous. I trust Paula. I think I don't know, to me, it's a witch hunt.
Is there, please state your name, address.
Jason Faust, 810 West Pine Street. As I listened to the mayor, he kept saying that Paula was made aware of all of these allegations. I'd just like to point it out that there's at least 3 of you up there that were aware that Mr. Kreger no longer lived in city limits 4 years ago. And you kept claiming that he moved out of the city last year. So if she was made aware, just like you were made aware, you guys knew it, you're getting him out of here for policy issues. Thanks. Is
there anyone else who would like to speak at this time?
Stephanie Faust. I would also like to call for the reinstatement of Paula. All of these reasons that you are bringing, you have 0 facts. There's no emails, there's no anything. Do you have any facts? Do you have any documentation at all for any of these ridiculous claims? I'm gonna take that as a no. She needs to be reinstated as a member of this amazing town. This is ridiculous.
Is there anyone else that likes? That will conclude the regular part of this evening's hearing. At this time, I will close the public hearing and the city council will vote to go into closed session. Number 3, consideration of closed session pursuant to Iowa Code 21.51C to discuss strategy with counsel on matters that are presently in litigation, where litigation is imminent, where its disclosure will be likely to be prejudiced and disadvantaged position of the government body in that litigation, and Iowa Code 21.51G to avoid disclosure of specific law enforcement matters such as current or proposed investigations or inspections or auditing techniques or schedules which have disclosed enable law violators to avoid detection. That ends the regular part of tonight's. Do I hear a motion for closed session?
Second.
Motion by Collins, second by Blackwell. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Roll call, I'm sorry.
Blackwell,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Coyote,
Aye.
Collins,
Aye.
Dockery.
Aye.
Go into closed session at 6:02. That ends the regular part of tonight's meeting.